As was said, we're a delegation of Nzuko Umuna. That is a pan-Igbo group whose members are individual professionals within Nigeria and diaspora, as well as members or leaders of most pan-Igbo associations and groups. We were sent to pay a visit to Nnamdi Kanu and his associates, currently in detention at the Kuje Prison, as part of a worldwide consultation process on the peace and development of our Igbo and Nigeria. We visited to hear his own point of view, and we also shared our views with him. Our interactions with Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues were frank and fruitful. That visit, as well as our concerns about the state of the Nigerian nation, have warranted this press conference. We speak as Nigerians on our behalf and on behalf of the tens of thousands of professionals in these various associations and groups. We believe that Nigeria has all the potentials to be great and one of the most prosperous nations on earth. Like most countries of the world, it has its own internal contradictions, challenges of national cohesion and development. Every country that has endured and prospered has devised a dynamic system for dealing with its internal contradictions. No country has prospered by suppressing legitimate agitations or democratic expression. Nigeria has greatly come short on these counts. Nigeria has never been more divided than now, with the agitation for self-determination becoming more stringent and desperate. Most discerning patrons have come to the conclusion that Nigeria, as currently structured and governed, is unsustainable and drifting to a failed state status. Since 2005, Nigeria has drifted from the rank of the 54th position in the Global Field of Fragile States Index to the 17th position in 2014, and now to a dangerous 13th position in 2016, and is classified under what they call the red alert category of countries. Perhaps no one sums the sentiments better than the respected elder statesman, Professor Abdullahi. This was reported on the 12th of February this year, when he asserts that, quote, Nigeria's project is not working. After 50 to 60 years, the Nigerian project is not working, despite everything we went through. Constitutional conferences, the country is at a standstill. It is unfortunate we are still where we were more than 50 years after independence, and have not been able to move away from where our colonial masters left us. End of quote. Our founding fathers and mothers, Nnamdi Kanu, Bafemi Awolowo, Bakatafa Balewa, Ahmadu Bello, Margaret Ebo, and co, must be turning in their graves to hear this. While this might appear an extreme characterization, it sums up the dominant sentiment of people who believe in the urgency of a fundamentally re-engineered new Nigeria. It is our considered view that much of the increasingly desperate agitations are in response to the failures of a dysfunctional, looting elite and poor governance in the context of a failing state that offers increasingly vanishing opportunities and hope for its youth and future generations. We do not condone violence, criminality, or brigandage of any sort, and nor should any state do so. However, by failing or refusing to address the fundamental issues and instead concentrating on the symptoms, Nigeria runs the grave risk of turning the entire country into a large prison yard or a police state. Consequent upon the foregoing, we demand as follows. First, that we note that in 2015, Nigerians voted for change based on a prospectus contained in the manifesto of the party that won the general election. That party is the All Progressive Congress, APC, which now controls the federal government and 23 out of 36 states of the Federation. As the ruling party, the APC has a duty to deliver on its most fundamental contract with the Nigerian people, namely to restructure the Nigerian Federation. If I may refer you to the APC manifesto, and I quote, it says, as progressives, we believe that Nigeria is greater than any individual or the sum of our federative units. Therefore, the country can always succeed when all of us have equal rights, where no one is above the law, where the culture of impunity is abolished, and where there is a level playing field. As a change agent, APC intends to cleanse our closet to halt the dangerous drift of Nigeria to a failed state, with a conscious plan for post-oil economy in Nigeria. To achieve this laudable program, APC government shall restructure the country, devolve power to the units with the best practices of federalism, and eliminate unintended paralysis of the center. End of quote. This is APC manifesto. So far, APC seems to have abandoned its cardinal contract with Nigeria. It is commendable that it is fighting corruption, fighting Boko Haram, and grappling with a deteriorating economy. However, it is our considered view that without dealing with several of the foundational issues of the Nigerian state in a post-oil economy, much of its efforts will, in the end, amount to tinkering at the edges. The current constitution of Nigeria was designed to consume the oil rents, and the system designed for consumption cannot suddenly become efficient for production in a post-oil world. But the task of rescuing and rebuilding a new Nigeria must be a multi-partisan and all-inclusive effort. There seems to be a national consensus that the current system cannot endure. The APC, PDP, APGA, and other political parties, as well as all non-partisan actors and statesmen, must come together to save Nigeria. We are in a state of emergency at all levels. The National Council of States needs to be convened urgently, and our legislative houses at the national and state assemblies should wake up to the new realities of Nigeria. If the only thing the current administration succeeds in doing is to re-engineer a new Nigeria, agreed to by its constituent parts and citizens, it will have bettered a new country for the 21st century. Second, we know that the preoccupation with where the next president of Nigeria will come from is an unnecessary distraction from the crisis at the moment and the urgency of erecting enduring pillars for a peaceful and prosperous country. We demand for a fairer and equitable system where it will no longer matter where the president or officers come from. We want a country where there are growing opportunities for our youth, for the youths, and future generations to live in peace and prosper. The next, we demand for the urgent release of Nnamdi Kanu, his colleagues, and all prisoners of conscience as part of the process of the search for national cohesion and building a new Nigeria. There is a legitimate debate among Nigerians on the Biafra question. And there are indeed many Igbos who, like many other Nigerians, may not agree with Nnamdi Kanu's objectives or means. But it needs to be stated, however, that no citizen of Nigeria deserves the kind of treatment that is meted to Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues. Government has declined to obey the orders of properly constituted courts in Nigeria for his release. Nnamdi Kanu is not above the law, but nor should he be put beneath it. A situation where the state refuses to obey clear and legitimate court orders for his release, and even one of them outrightly ordered for his unconditional release. There is absolutely no reason in a country with a rule of law that he should have been held an hour later than those court orders or even rulings of the court that he should be released unconditionally. Why is Nnamdi Kanu's case an exception? And so we note that a situation where the state refuses to obey clear and legitimate court orders for his release and holds him until it gets a favorable order, and then continues to move the goalposts endlessly through endless amendments of the charges against him, and now seek to try him in secret, clearly constitutes circumstances that will fall well short of the constitutional guarantees of due process. This also will raise questions about our country's adherence to human rights, the rule of law, and transparent judicial process. We worry there is now a clear design to place Nnamdi Kanu and his group beneath the law and basic constitutional guarantees in the country and the basic constitutional guarantees of due process. Without rule of law, no sustainable economic progress can happen. The charge of treasonable felony, which is now levied against Nnamdi Kanu, has previously been used against Joseph Taka and Obafemi Awolowo. His trial reminds us of the travails of these historic figures in our country, and indeed of the more recent military-era treason trial of President Obasanjo. Not many people now believe that Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues can receive a fair trial based on the law. Most people, most patriotic Nigerians, do not believe that Nnamdi Kanu can now receive fair trial strictly on the law, because the laws that happen, it's gone through the court processes, one court order, one outright release, unconditional release, and the Nigerian state refused. And you keep holding him until you get a favorable court order. I'm sorry. It is our view that the current circumstance makes Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues political prisoners, our prisoners of conscience. They're no longer, it's not about crime, it's not about anything, because we're no longer following the rule of law. At various times in Nigeria's history, it became expedient to release such prisoners. For example, Obafemi Awolowo, Yakubu Gowon, Odumegwu Ojukwu, as well as President Obasanjo, as part of national reconciliation and nation building. Nigeria is currently a country at war with itself. Just like Nigeria wisely dealt with a potentially explosive political Sharia, unquote, a few years ago, a time like this calls for a lot of wisdom and compromise in the interest of the larger picture. Our considered view is that for taking extraordinary steps to draw international attention to Nigeria's failing state and the urgency of action, Nnamdi Kanu and his colleagues deserve to be engaged seriously and not to be held interminably as political detainees. We demand that the right to freedom of association, assembly, peaceful protest, and expression must be accessible to all citizens of Nigeria and as guaranteed by Nigeria's constitution. Trying to criminalize anyone who talks about self-determination or attempts to use brute force to maim and kill innocent protesters in a democracy is a strategy for a time that we no longer live in. This is 2017, and Nigeria is supposed to be a democracy. More than 200 years after 11 states in the US filed their secession bid, their Confederate flag still flies in several of these states still today in America, even on government buildings. Since 2012, no less than 23 US states and had thousands of their citizens signed petitions to secede from the US. Currently, the state of California is still pressing for Calexit. There were protests all over the US following the election of Donald Trump. Similar examples can be cited in many democracies, but no one is killed, brutalized, or incarcerated by the state. The next, we say that as a people, we believe that our country is big enough for diverse voices to be heard, in the confidence that these voices in their respective ways seek to correct our imperfections, to have a stake in constructing a more perfect union. We convey our thanks to the federal government for reaffirming recently that citizens, and I will even add also that the Vice President, Professor Simbajo, added his weighty voice to this as well, that citizens have a right to peaceful protest. And we are happy that protesters were allowed to express themselves in Lagos, Abuja, and other venues recently under police protection. Therefore, and in particular, we condemn the use of disproportionate force and live bullets by law enforcement agencies resulting in killing and maiming of unarmed protesters generally, especially the killing of IPOB and MASOB members under whatever guise, and call on the law enforcement agencies to take steps to ensure that those responsible are held accountable. We equally call on the governors of the states in which these have occurred to exercise their powers under the relevant Commission of Inquiry laws to investigate these killings through appropriate judicial commissions of inquiry. Additionally, we call on the chief judges of the respective states to order coroner's inquiries into these killings as required by the relevant coroner's laws. We affirm our belief that it is better for a democracy that people should express their grievances or agitations peacefully and openly than to force them into more dangerous underground operations. We want to thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Sorry, so I'm called the question and answer section.
Okay, please go ahead.
You don't need any mic.
Just go. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred. I report for Sun newspaper. Sun newspaper. I have two questions. First, there are confirmed reports that the federal government is insisting that Nnamdi Kanu renounce Biafra agitation for independent Biafra before they can consider releasing him. So I want to know if in the course of your discussion with Nnamdi Kanu, you're able to secure that commitment that going forward, he would pander towards the dictates of the federal government. That's one. And the second one, we've had judgments from Nigerian courts, even from ECOWAS courts, that have not been obeyed by the federal government. As a group, I don't need to intend to take it forward. Maybe petition, national organizations, state protests, do something out of the ordinary instead of just making the press, having the press conference, then going back to sleep. I want to wait for beyond this, what you tend to do to push your case and draw international attention to what the government. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we'll take it in batches, about 2 or 3, and then we'll respond.
Okay, my name is Victor Sin. My name is Victor Sin, and I work for Radio Nigeria. I have 2 questions, just like my colleague. Number one, on the first issue, calling for restructuring of the nation. There seems to be a recurring decimal in our nation, where those who are out of power now suddenly realize that there's need for restructuring. Many of you are here in government and did not see the reason to restructure, then on the outside government, you now see the reason. How genuine is your call for restructuring? I know I'm from the South South. Jonathan came on the heels of injustice done to the South South people, but immediately came, everybody in the South South kept quiet. But that's number one. Then number two, on the Nnamdi Kanu question, I want to find out if your group has been able both to establish contact with the federal government to look for a political solution to this problem, because in most cases when it comes to issues like this, political solutions are actually the way out instead of this legal tussle. Thank you.
My name is Paul. I write for this daily newspaper. So my question is a two-pronged approach. One, with the situation in the country, the president is on medical vacation and his vice is not and the acting president. So I want to know categorically, this message, this call for the release of Kanu, is it one squarely directed to the acting president? Then the second aspect is, you talked about IPOD. The defense headquarters and the military establishment has come out to categorically say they were not such cases. There's a conflict between Amnesty International on a report where they said about 200 and something IPOD members have been killed in the course of this protest. I want to know whether you people are able to substantiate the position of the defense headquarters and the other military establishment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. The first question went to, both questions actually go to the same point, which is around the rule of law. The simple position that we take, that Nnamdi Kanu takes, is that the rule of law should prevail. If we're a country under law, then surely the way to resolve an issue that was taken to court is to obey due court process. So I don't think that it's a matter of calling on anybody to revoke anything. These are opinions that citizens hold and that they are free to express, and they have been expressed. I think that what is required is to engage in a dialogue on those opinions so expressed, but not to ask anybody to renounce his opinion. That would amount to intimidation of citizens from expressing their point of view. Now, the second question from Lower Nigeria is about restructuring, and a suggestion that restructuring only comes up when people are outside of government. Professor Soludo read out a statement from the manifesto of the APC, and everybody asks a government in power to be accountable to what it says it will do. I think this is a very simple logic. As one who was writing the APC manifesto, by the way, I stand by that position. So it's not only those who are outside of government and those who are in government. It's also not correct to say that under Jonathan, people from the South stopped asking for restructuring. The beginning of what led to the conference was a meeting that a group of us, I was chief convener, Tony Nnadi was executive secretary, calling for this process that led to it. So it's not correct to say people from the South did not ask for restructuring once Jonathan got into office. Are we looking for a political solution? Always what is superior is a political solution. People must talk, and that's why the process, the institutions for free speech must be upheld. It is through engagement in that kind of dialogue that we find solutions that are optimal, best for the interest of all, that serve the common good of all. And the third question from Paul Obi was about, is this, now that the president of medical vacation, we have institutions. We have the federal government of Nigeria. Appropriate authorities have been handed over. So our position is not directed at individuals, it's directed at the federal government of Nigeria. So I think that we can say that we will pursue this in all appropriate ways. Now, about the position of the military establishment versus the Amnesty International, one of the points that was raised in the statement read by Professor Soludo essentially calls for commissions of inquiry. And those commissions of inquiry, when they are set up, people will come and give testimony, provide evidence. And the white paper that will come out of this should then determine how we go forward. We'll know then who is telling the truth, because evidence is abundant and will be presented as such commissions of inquiry.
So
Sorry, sir. The second leg of my question, will you respond to it?
Oh, which is the... Oh, where do we go from here?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to stay consistent. We are consulting, and this is a global level consulting. And we're continuing this process. We'll keep engaging all of the important stakeholders, and we'll ensure that we get to the table and sort things out. But this is not a one press conference thing. It's an ongoing engagement, and we're not going to stop, back off for any reason until the best interest of Nigeria is served. Because this is what we're doing. And let's face it, the challenge of now is a challenge pan-Nigeria. Somebody described the Nigerian condition as discontent writ large. So we're not just pressing one section's view. We're trying to say what almost all Nigerians are trying to say without saying anything. That it's time to talk about these issues because they're hurting us, they're preventing our country from making the progress that it should make. I mean, there's investors, when they look at our country, they look at all of these issues and they pull back in spite of the resources and the talents that are in the country. And all of us suffer it. And so we must do something. It's a duty for all citizens now, not for a group or the other.
For
Wall Street Journal.
okay.
If, first of all, I just want to know when this association was settled. 1. 2. If Nnamdi Kanu is not released, what will you do? 3. How soon are we expecting this commission of inquiry to be settled? Thank you.
Okay. I think he said a chunk of what I wanted to ask. My name is Evelyn Okaku. I write for Premium Times newspapers. The question I want to ask is quite related to one of the questions the last person asked now. You talked about the failure of government to abide by court rulings that are not favorable until they wait for favorable court rulings. Okay, regarding Nnamdi Kanu, we all know that there are other persons, other Nigerians that have been held in similar capacity, and even though deadlines were even given for their detention, for their release, none of such deadlines have been obeyed. Now, if government fails to, for example, file of course the case is ongoing, take any action, file a court process, for instance, against the ECOWAS court ruling, and still detains him, are you telling us that within a short period of time or so, you would take a further action, maybe in an international court regarding this matter? That's one. Secondly, one of the issues, of course, that has remained pending and which some analysts have regarded as reasons for agitations like this is the issue of zoning, so to say, of leadership in this country. You said you did say that Nigerian leaders should make it an atmosphere where there will be no need for this sort of agitation based on the kind of leadership pattern. What are those atmospheres? Can you elaborate more on that?
My name is Joshua Lomo. I report from the News Agency of Nigeria. Apart from now, News Agency of Nigeria. I just want to ask if is the group against the private or the secret trial of Nnamdi Kanu, and why?
Okay, is that it? Okay. First of all, what will we do if the petitions that were put in before the Nigerian nation, this is not to government, actually to the Nigerian nation, to all responsible people. Let's not forget that government is an agency function. They're agents of the people who are sovereign. And so this is a question put to the sovereign state of Nigeria. Do we want our country to be run outside of the rule of law? I think no serious person living in the 21st century wants to live in a country that is run outside of the state rule of law. And because we know that, we expect that this process will go on until citizenship behavior says this is unacceptable. Nigeria must be run as a country on the law. And so the agitation is as long as it takes, because that's how you build institutions, that's how you build a nation. How soon will the commission be set up? Again, democracy is about truth. It's about civil society engaging. And we are part of civil society, we are a pressure group. And we will do everything that is necessary, internationalize the issues. And one of the issues, for example, that people, and these things can sometimes take time, sometimes it can happen very quickly if those who are running things are smart, because they save a lot of trouble which delay brings. One of the great issues of last century, the Armenians pursued for a very long time, until finally it began to pop up at the United Nations and all of that. And a word that we now take for granted entered our lexicon. It's called genocide. It took resistance on the part of Armenian peoples all over the world up to the time that people of conscience rose. The truth of the matter is, when you incarcerate Nnamdi Kanu, who is incarcerated is not Nnamdi Kanu, it's all people of conscience. Who is incarcerated, it's not Nnamdi Kanu, it's all people whose perspective he represents, whether they come from an ethnic nationality group. If you incarcerate him, you incarcerate all people who believe in the rule of law. And so it is this collective imprisonment that we expect will force a rethink on the part of all people about this. So we do hope and expect that we will get results. What essentially it's calling for is citizenship behavior. Now the next set of questions talked about zoning and leadership. I think that one of the challenges of Nigeria, one of the problems of Nigeria, is that we often reduce our problems to who got what position. And it came out in the statement made here. It is not about whose turn this is up. And this is why we have often worried about the choices we made as a result of these things. What we are asking is that we have institutions that work, that all citizens get a fair shake under law in the country, and that the process, the political process, enable us, ensure that we have this kind of society that can be legitimately or genuinely called a democracy. So it is not about what part, what turn. That doesn't make it happen. In fact, if there's a big myth, is that your people being in power necessarily improves your lot. In this environment that is essentially a rent economy, a group of rent seekers can cluster together, profit their partners who may not be from their part of the country, and their turn goes away. In fact, I can give you an example from Malaysia about that, but we can go on and on, But the point is, we're looking at genuine reform of the Nigerian state and civic engagement in public life. The next question here, I think it's really secret trial. Are we opposed to secret trial? How can you have a secret trial of a citizen in a democracy on a matter that is so evidently civil that the courts have ordered his release? I mean, to talk of a secret trial is to say we're retreating to the apartheid type lager. It should not even be a question raised by anybody. It has no basis at all.
So the
Yeah,
first leg of my question.
I think there are so many things that was missed. And there was this question about who is Nzuko Umuna?
Oh, yeah.
And then when did they start?
Well, there's been a process which a variety of Igbos have emerged. And in the last year or so, there's been an attempt to begin to streamline these. And out of this streamlining, has emerged, Nzuko Umuna. I can tell you that part of it also is the result of the need to create a new generation of leaders. So not us. We are exiting. We are in the departure lounge. And we thought that those in their 30s and 40s should begin to take charge. And they are driving this process. And they are just using, us to draw strength. But Nzuko Umuna is driven by mainly 30-something and 40-something-year-olds from all over the world.
Okay, the first leg of my question.
Who are Igbos, of course. Sorry?
The first leg of my question regarding what action, probably via international courts, that you might take.
Yes. No. The issue, if we're going to pursue locally and if need be, internationally, we will internationalize this subject if need be, but we will pursue it in a systematic manner. There's no
international criminal court.
Yes.
if necessary.
Situation and option.
I mean, we're not discussing those kinds of things here. We're talking about how to build a nation. Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, that's